Alex Chen stood in front of his dormitory mirror, adjusting the ridiculous atmospheric assistance device strapped across his face. The sleek silver contraption made him look like a reject from a budget sci-fi movie. Just another wonderful day at the Galactic Military Academy, he thought, rolling his eyes at his reflection. Cadet Chen, the shrilling voice of his Verdantian classmate, pierced through the door. "You're going to be late for morning assembly, though I suppose your primitive circadian rhythms are to blame. Such a shame you have to waste time on sleep." "Thank you so much for your concern," Lara Alex called back, his voice dripping with sweetness that could rot teeth. "I wouldn't want to miss another fascinating lecture about how humans are basically walking bags of weakness." As he stepped into the corridor, he was immediately dwarfed by the towering forms of his classmates. Lara's chlorophyll-infused skin gleamed under the artificial sunlight, her leaf-like hair performing photosynthesis even as she walked. Show off. Next to her, a Chronaxian cadet flexed all four of his arms, each capable of lifting a small shuttle. The student's crystalline exoskeleton sparkled as he deliberately bumped into Alex. "Careful there," soft-skinned the Chronaxian sneered. "Wouldn't want you to break. How do your people even survive with such fragile calcium-based bones?" "Oh, you know us humans," Alex replied, straightening his uniform. "We just keep stumbling through life, somehow managing not to shatter into a million pieces. It's our special talent." The morning assembly was its usual parade of species superiority. Commander ZX Till, a gaseous being contained within an environmental suit, floated at the podium, their voice resonating through the chamber. "And remember, cadets, in today's survival training, we'll be testing endurance. Those of you who require regular sustenance." Here, every head turned to stare at Alex should prepare accordingly. Though why any species would evolve to need multiple energy inputs per day is beyond my comprehension. Yes, because converting solar energy through your transparent membrane is clearly the peak of evolution, Alex thought, maintaining his bland smile. He patted the lunch pack attached to his belt, another source of endless amusement for his classmates. The horror of actually needing to eat food. During the morning exercises, Alex watched as his classmates demonstrated their superior abilities. The Aerolith twins levitated through the obstacle course. A Duranian classmate casually bench-pressed a cargo container. Meanwhile, Alex had to endure the instructor's constant reminders about his limitations. "Cadet Chen, please remember to maintain regular breathing patterns," the medical officer fussed, adjusting Alex's atmospheric device. "Your primitive respiratory system requires such constant monitoring." "Really?" Alex gasped dramatically. "And here I was planning to just stop breathing altogether. Thank goodness you reminded me." The worst part wasn't the patronizing treatment or even the constant mockery. It was the genuine pity in some of his classmates' eyes. They truly believed humans were some sort of endangered species that needed protection from a harsh universe. During lunch, or as his classmates called it, his mandatory energy acquisition period, Alex sat alone, methodically eating his meal while around him, various species engaged in their superior forms of sustenance. Some absorbed nutrients directly through their skin, others connected to energy ports, and a few simply entered temporary hibernation states. "I don't know how you do it," Chen said Mrix, a gelatinous being who had oozed their way to his table. "Having to constantly process organic matter for energy. It seems so primitive." Alex stabbed his fork into his synthetic protein cube. "Well, Mrix, we all have our crosses to bear. Some species have to put up with being able to reshape their molecular structure at will. Others have to deal with being practically immortal. And then there's me, cursed with the ability to enjoy a good sandwich." As he headed to afternoon training, Alex caught his reflection in a window. The atmospheric device gleamed mockingly. Little did his classmates know that the device wasn't helping him breathe, it was analyzing the atmospheric composition of the academy, gathering data for human intelligence. But they'd figure that out soon enough. For now, he'd continue playing the role of the weak human, nodding politely through lectures about his species' limitations, smiling through the condescension, and keeping his thoughts to himself. After all, humans had learned long ago that being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all. Cadet Chen barked an instructor. "Stop dawdling. Not everyone can enter suspended animation to avoid training." "Coming," Sir Alex called cheerfully. "Just trying to remember how to put one foot in front of the other. We humans struggle with such complex tasks, you know." Under his breath, he muttered, Enjoy the jokes while you can, folks. You'll learn soon enough why humans are really the most feared species in the galaxy. He patted his atmospheric device affectionately. But for now, let's continue this delightful charade. Today's exercise, Commander ZX Till announced, their gaseous form swirling with what might have been excitement, will test your species' natural advantages in a combat scenario. Alex suppressed a yawn as he stood in line with his classmates. Unlike them, he'd actually slept last night instead of entering a productivity optimization state. How primitive of him. The combat arena sprawled before them, a maze of obstacles and challenges. The Chronaxian cadet, Vrax, immediately started showing off, his crystalline arms glinting as he crushed a metal barrier like it was made of paper. Incredible demonstration of strength, the combat instructor praised. This is what peak evolution looks like. She turned to Alex with an expression of practiced patience. Cadet Chen, perhaps you should sit this one out. We wouldn't want you to strain yourself. Oh no, I insist on participating, Alex replied, stretching leisurely. How else will I learn about my countless limitations? The first challenge was a series of combat simulations. The Verdantian T-Lara moved like lightning, her photosynthesis enhanced muscles allowing for burst speeds that made her nearly invisible. The Aerolith twins literally flew through their opponents. Even gelatinous Mrix showed impressive combat prowess, simply absorbing and redirecting attacks through their fluid form. Then came Alex's turn. His first opponent, a training bot, charged at him with crushing force. Cadet Chen's several instructors shouted in alarm, "Disengage immediately." But something strange happened. Alex moved not with the blinding speed of T-Lara or the raw power of Vrax, but with a fluid precision that seemed to anticipate each attack before it came. His primitive adrenaline response kicked in, time seeming to slow as his body reacted with an efficiency that came from millions of years of evolution as both predator and prey. Fascinating, muttered the medical officer, checking her readings. The human's inferior hormone-based response system actually appears to be functioning adequately. High praise indeed, Alex quipped, disabling his third training bot while barely breaking a sweat. I'll be sure to thank my endocrine system later. The next test was the endurance run. Alex watched as his classmates showcased their superior capabilities. T-Lara converted solar energy directly into speed. The Chronaxians bounded forward on their powerful legs. The Aeroliths simply floated above the track. And now, sighed Commander ZX Till, Cadet Chen will demonstrate the human approach to locomotion. Please note the medical team standing by. Alex started running at what his classmates considered a laughably slow pace. Look, Vrax sneered, already a lap ahead, he's barely moving. 2 hours later, Alex was still running. The same steady, mechanical pace. Meanwhile, T-Lara had depleted her solar reserves. The Chronaxians' powerful muscles had burned through their energy. Even the Aeroliths had to land, their levitation fields exhausted. How wheezed Vrax, watching in disbelief as Alex continued his relentless jog. You're supposed to be weak. Oh, this Alex barely sounded winded. This is just a light jog. You should see humans doing something called a marathon, though I'm sure it's nothing compared to your impressive abilities. The final test of the day was a tactical simulation. Most of Alex's classmates had gone without their species' version of sleep for days, proving their superiority over primitive human needs. The simulation involved complex problem-solving under pressure. Alex watched as his sleep-deprived classmates made increasingly poor decisions. T-Lara miscalculated a simple trajectory. Vrax couldn't remember basic protocols. Even the usually composed Mrix seemed to be losing molecular cohesion. Alex, who had enjoyed a full 8 hours of unnecessary sleep, methodically worked through each challenge. His solutions weren't flashy, no photosynthetic power moves or gravity-defying acrobatics, just practical, efficient strategies that got the job done. Acceptable performance, the tactical instructor grudgingly admitted, for a species with such limited cognitive processing capability. Thank you, sir, Alex replied with a straight face. I try to make the most of my simple human brain. Later, in the Academy's mess hall, Alex sat eating his primitive meal while the other cadets debated his performance. It doesn't make sense, T-Lara insisted, her leaves drooping with exhaustion. Humans are supposed to be the weakest species in the galaxy. No special abilities, no evolutionary advantages. Perhaps Mrix oozed thoughtfully. That is their advantage. Being adaptable. The suggestion was met with dismissive laughter. Commander ZX Till, floating past their table, summarized the Academy's official position while Cadet Chen's performance today was surprising. It merely demonstrates how far humans have come despite their obvious evolutionary disadvantages. They remain, at best, barely space-capable primitives. Alex finished his meal in silence, hiding his smile. Let them think what they wanted. Humans had learned long ago that true strength wasn't about having the biggest muscles or the most sophisticated biology. It was about endurance, adaptation, and the ability to keep going when others had to stop. As he headed back to his quarters, he heard the medical officer and tactical instructor discussing his performance. It's almost as if the medical officer mused, these supposed weaknesses, the need for sleep, the hormone-based stress response, the slow twitch muscle fibers work together in some sort of... Don't be ridiculous, the tactical instructor cut her off. They're clearly evolutionary holdovers from their primitive past, nothing more. Alex touched his atmospheric assistance device, recording their conversation for his report. Keep thinking that, he thought. Keep underestimating us? It's worked out so well for everyone else who's made that mistake. Cadet Chen, Commander ZX Till's voice boomed through the corridor. Remember to check your atmospheric device before sleep cycle. We wouldn't want your primitive respiratory system failing during the night. Of course, Commander Alex called back cheerfully. Heaven forbid I forget how to breathe in my sleep. That would be embarrassing. In his room, Alex made a show of checking his device for the benefit of the Academy's monitoring systems. Soon enough, they'd learn what the device was really for. But for now, he had to maintain his role as the weak human who somehow managed to survive despite his species' many limitations. Sweet dreams, he muttered sarcastically to himself, knowing that his classmates considered sleep another sign of human weakness. Or, as they'd say, enjoy your primitive consciousness shutdown period. Little did they know that tomorrow would prove just how valuable these primitive traits could be. After all, the best kind of strength is the one your opponents don't even recognize as strength at all. The final examination chamber hummed with nervous energy as cadets demonstrated their species-specific combat capabilities. Lara's photosynthetic powers created dazzling light shows. Vrax's crystalline form deflected energy weapons. The Aurolith twins manipulated gravity itself. Alex stood at his testing station, looking characteristically unimpressive. Cadet Chen, Commander ZX Till announced with resigned disappointment, proceed with your basic combat demonstration. That's when the Academy's alarms began screaming. This is not part of the examination, Commander ZX Till's gaseous form condensed with concern. We have multiple hostile ships breaching our... The ceiling exploded. Space pirates, notorious for their genetic enhancements and illegal tech, poured through the breach. Their leader, a towering figure with cybernetic augmentations, laughed at the chaos. Well, the galaxy's finest future warriors. Let's see how your evolutionary advantages hold up in a real fight. The Academy's elite cadets sprang into action and promptly discovered how their specialized adaptations failed them. Lara's photosynthetic powers sputtered in the smoke-filled air. The Aurolith twins' gravitational control went haywire with the Academy's artificial gravity fluctuating. Vrax's crystalline form, pushed beyond its limits, began to crack. Is anyone else finding this slightly ironic? Alex muttered, ducking behind a fallen column. No, just me. The pirates had done their homework. They'd specifically targeted each species' weaknesses while they were exhausted from examinations. What they hadn't counted on was the human who actually slept last night. Hey, Alex called out, drawing their attention. Quick question, did your research mention anything about human adaptability? He moved through the chaos with practiced ease. While his classmates struggled with their failing specialized abilities, Alex relied on what the Academy had dismissed as primitive traits: raw adaptability, adrenaline-fueled focus, and the simple advantage of being well-rested. Lara called out weakly, her chlorophyll-depleted form slumped against a wall. Run. Your inferior physiology can't handle this. Funny thing about inferior physiology, Alex grunted, pulling her to safety while dodging plasma bolts. It's got a neat trick called dealing with suboptimal conditions. We do it all the time. The pirates had cut life support to certain sections, expecting it to incapacitate the cadets. Instead, they watched in confusion as Alex kept functioning, his atmospheric assistance device working overtime. Oh, this Alex tapped the device while disarming a pirate. It's not actually helping me breathe, but thanks for your concern. He found Vrax next, the mighty Chronaxian's crystalline form showing stress fractures. Don't. Help me, Vrax growled. Your weak human strength. Yes, I'm pathetically weak. Alex rolled his eyes, applying emergency sealant to Vrax's cracks. Now shut up and let this primitive primate save your superior life. The pirates had expected the Academy's elite cadets to be their greatest threat. Instead, they found themselves increasingly frustrated by the supposedly weakest student who just wouldn't stay down. Why won't you break? The pirate leader roared, landing a direct hit on Alex's shoulder. Alex grimaced through the pain, his body's primitive healing responses already kicking in. Sorry to disappoint, but humans are surprisingly hard to break. We're basically the cockroaches of the galaxy, not pretty, but really hard to kill. The battle shifted as Alex began coordinating the recovering cadets, turning their specialized abilities into a cohesive strategy. His simple human brain, unburdened by the evolutionary specialization of his classmates, adapted to the chaos in real time. Lara, use your remaining photosynthetic energy to blind them. Vrax, you don't need to be at full strength to be a barrier. Mrex, stop trying to maintain your form, use your fluid state to your advantage. You're giving us combat advice, Mrex burbled in disbelief. I know, shocking. The primitive human actually learned something during all those hours I wasn't spending in suspended animation, Alex quipped, ducking under a plasma burst. Who knew sleep could be useful? The tide turned. The pirates found their tactical advantages dissolving as Alex's strategy brought out the best in his classmates' abilities, while compensating for their weaknesses. His inferior human traits, the ability to think clearly under pressure, to ignore pain, to adapt to changing situations, proved decisive. As Academy security finally arrived to find the pirates subdued and the cadets alive, Commander Alex Chen's gaseous form swirled with confusion. Cadet Chen, your performance was unexpected. Thank you, Sir, Alex replied, wincing as a medic treated his shoulder. Though I should mention this atmospheric device is actually a sophisticated data-gathering tool. And those pirates? They were after the wrong target. They thought the Academy's advanced species were the threat. He smiled through the pain. They really should have done better research on humans. You mean Lara's leaves trembled? Yep, Alex's grin turned predatory. Turns out being weak at everything means learning to be strong in ways that actually matter. But please, continue telling me about how humans are barely space-capable primitives. It's honestly my favorite part of the day. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The only sound was Alex's laughter, which might have been slightly influenced by his body's primitive shock response. Now, if you'll excuse me, he stood, brushing off debris. This inferior human needs to report to his superiors. You know how it is, permanent brain damage if we don't get our regular sleep. As he walked away, he heard Vrax mutter, maybe we should reconsider our definition of advanced evolution. You think Alex called back sarcastically? I mean, I'd love to stay and discuss evolutionary theory, but unfortunately, my primitive digestive system requires regular nutrition. Such a burden, being human. The Academy's Grand Hall had never been so quiet. Every species present, from the gaseous to the crystalline, from the photosynthetic to the gravity-manipulating, watched as Alex Chen stood before them, no longer wearing his atmospheric device. First he began, smiling pleasantly, I'd like to thank the Academy for providing such an educational experience. It's been truly fascinating being treated as a walking evolutionary mistake. Commander Alex Chen's gaseous form churned uncomfortably. Cadet Chen, or should I say Commander Chen. Actually, Alex's smile widened. It's Admiral Chen, Galactic Special Operations Division. Though I've got to say, barely capable primitive has a certain ring to it too. The hall erupted in murmurs. Lara's leaves wilted in embarrassment. Vrax's crystalline form clouded with distress. Mrex had literally lost molecular cohesion and was slowly melting under their seat. As you've probably guessed by now, the pirate attack wasn't random. Neither was my placement here. Humanity has been conducting a long-term evaluation of various species' adaptability and combat readiness. And I've got to say, he paused dramatically. The results are concerning. But your weakness is, the tactical instructor protested. The need for sleep, regular sustenance. Ah, yes, my weaknesses. Alex's voice dripped with sarcasm. Let's talk about those, shall we? Lara, how are you feeling after 3 days without proper light exposure? The Verdantian squirmed. I can barely move. Vrax, how's that crystalline structure holding up under sustained stress? The Chronaxian's surface showed visible cracks, and the aerolith twins still having trouble maintaining gravitational control under pressure. The twins floated awkwardly at different heights, unable to stabilize. Meanwhile, Alex continued, this primitive human is standing here, fully functional, despite multiple injuries, sleep deprivation, and combat stress. Would anyone like to explain how that's possible? Silence. The answer is simple. Humans aren't specialized. We're not the strongest, fastest, or most energy efficient. We can't photosynthesize or manipulate gravity or turn our skin into crystal. We're weak at everything, which means we've had to become adaptable at everything. He began pacing, his boots echoing in the silent hall. While you were evolving perfect adaptations for specific conditions, humans were evolving to handle imperfect conditions. While you were developing specialized abilities, we were developing general resilience. And while you were becoming superior at your strengths, we were learning to turn our weaknesses into advantages. The atmospheric device commander ZX realized was monitoring your responses to perceived human vulnerability. Alex confirmed. A species that underestimates its potential allies is as dangerous as one that underestimates its enemies. Your dismissal of human capabilities wasn't just insulting, it was strategically short-sighted. He turned to address the cadets directly. You mock humans for needing sleep, but our sleep cycles give us better judgment and creativity than your consciousness suspension states. You laugh at our need for regular meals, but our digestive system lets us process almost anything for energy. You dismiss our adrenaline as primitive, but it gives us focus and strength when your specialized systems fail. But the mockery, the medical officer interjected. The constant degradation showed another human trait you overlooked: psychological resilience. Every joke about human weakness, every dismissive comment about our evolution, every patronizing gesture, they all proved that humans can maintain operational effectiveness, even under social and psychological stress. Which, by the way, is a crucial military trait. Alex's expression hardened. Here's what you all missed: humans aren't just surviving despite our weaknesses, we're thriving because of them. Every limitation forced us to innovate. Every vulnerability made us adapt. Every weakness taught us strength. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his atmospheric device. This wasn't protecting me from your atmosphere. It was protecting you from fully understanding human capabilities until we were ready to reveal them. Because if there's one thing humans have learned through our primitive history, it's that being underestimated is the greatest tactical advantage of all. Looking around the shocked faces, Alex allowed himself a final, satisfied smile. So the next time you meet a species that seems weak, remember this: those who evolve to overcome weakness often become stronger than those who evolve to maximize strength. Being good at everything might feel superior, but being adaptable to anything, that's true power. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Commander ZX, you might want to update the Academy's xenobiology textbooks. Under humans, I suggest adding warning: extremely dangerous. Their greatest weapon is letting you think they're weak. As Alex walked out of the hall, he heard the beginnings of urgent discussions behind him. His final words drifted back: but please, don't let me interrupt your very important discussions about human primitiveness. I need to go do some primitive human things anyway, you know, like surviving conditions that would kill a superior species. The doors closed behind him with a satisfying thud, leaving the Academy to reckon with the revelation that they'd had humanity all wrong. Their supposedly perfect evolutionary adaptations had blinded them to the perfect adaptation not having any perfect adaptations at all. And somewhere in the galaxy, another human weakness was being dismissed by another advanced species who hadn't yet learned that underestimating humanity was the last mistake many civilizations ever made.